guys, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you all of the best books from 2017. I had a really hard time making this list this year. I had a really mediocre reading year in 2017. There were a lot of books that were really good that I really enjoyed, but not ones that I would ever call like favorites. I even felt inauthentic to call this a favorites of 2017 because I don't know if these are favorites. They're the best of 2017, that's for sure. That is the mindset that I want you to come into this video with, that I'm coming into this video with, is that these were the best books I read in 2017. They are in no particular order. Let's go ahead and get into the books. The first of my pile here is Renegades. It's a science fiction, slightly dystopian story about superheroes and supervillains. So naturally I was hyped for it. We follow two perspectives, Aiden, who is the son of a superhero, and Nova, who is the niece of the most iconic supervillain. It's mostly focused on Nova, the supervillain, and I loved her perspective because she's a villain, so she does things that are morally ambiguous. The reasons why she does things make sense, especially when you come at it from her perspective and from what she's been through in her life. And I just really liked that she was sent to infiltrate these superheroes. The superheroes aren't necessarily doing everything right. I really liked the commentary of good and evil, what makes somebody good, what makes them evil. Is there really such a black and white line between the two? Nova was fantastic. So refreshing to read the gender roles like swapped in this book, because Nova is the sarcastic, witty, brooding female character, whereas Aiden is the very naive male character. I just feel like that was so fresh and different, and I'm such a fan of superheroes and supervillains, so this was definitely a favorite of mine last year. Next on my list is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray, which I don't know if it's just because I listened to the audiobook of this year, or if it's just because the series is that wonderful, but this was such an enjoyable experience. I'd read The Diviners in print format last year and I enjoyed it. I actually, once I got into the story, like really was gripped by it. I loved the characters. I loved the setting. It takes place in the 1920s in New York, and there's like an occult vibe to the story, and I really loved that, but listening to it just brought it to a whole new level. The narrator, Jenny Lavoie, is incredibly talented. She is just, I'm blown away. She's a single narrator who narrates like dozens of characters and makes them all so unique. I liked the occult, supernatural spirit in The Diviners better. I thought it was much creepier. I felt like it was definitely deserving of the term occult. Regardless, there are so many things coming to light with the creation of the Diviners and who they are as a group of people and why they were created and where they came from, and I can't wait to learn more about them in the third book. Obsessed with this series. It's fantastic. Next on my list is Geekerella by Ashley Poston. As the title suggests, this is a retelling of Cinderella but with geek culture. So it is about a young girl whose father created a con, like a Comic-Con type of thing, that revolves around this very famous show in their world that's very much like Star Trek. So there are so many aspects of pop culture and nerd culture in here that makes it just the most relatable reading experience that I've personally ever had. Things and use phrases for things that we experience every day, being fangirls, fanboys, fan people. These are our people. Plus there's all this wonderful imagery from Cinderella. You have the magic pumpkin, you have the beautiful dress, you have the evil stepmother and the stepsisters and the fairy godmother, and the way that she played with it and how she tailored it to fit nerd culture was just incredibly impressive and so enjoyable, and I had the best time reading this. I was very impressed by how much I liked this. I didn't think I was going to end up loving it like I did, but it was definitely one of the standout contemporaries that I read this year. Next we have Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. It is the YA pirate story we've all been waiting for. This is pitched as Lady Jack Sparrow, and it is Lady Jack Sparrow. Alosa is the most fearsome YA heroine I've read about in a long time. She defies all of these ideas of what a YA heroine should be because she's not interested in romance. There is a romance, but it takes Alosa a very long time to warm up to it and to kind of understand what her feelings are about the romance. Like, she doesn't really understand how to engage with somebody like that. She's always been so ambitious and driven to be the successor her father has always wanted. It's just phenomenal. Alosa has to sneak onto an enemy pirate ship in order to steal a piece of a map that's going to lead them to this mystical land of treasure and fortune, and it's just amazing. I love it so much. Cannot wait for book 2 to come out. I've needed it from the moment that I finished this, and I'm very sad it's only a duology because I need more things like this to exist. Next is The Prodigy by Tosca Leigh. This was a book that I read during Booktubeathon. That was the first book that really blew me away this year. If you haven't seen that vlog, I will link it down below. You can watch me the moment I finish this book absolutely gush for minutes about how amazing it was. It's this epic cross-European scavenger hunt with secret societies. I believe this is also technically an adult book. Our main character is 21 and she intentionally has her memory erased to protect certain secrets that she has from landing in the wrong hands. However, the people she's been running from end up catching up to her and then puts her on a run that leads to this other like massive chain of events. And it is so good. It is about Queen Elizabeth Bathory, who is known as the Blood Countess, one of the most prolific serial killers in history. The main character is a descendant of her, and then the other organization that is trying to take out our main character is descendants of the families of the victims. This would make a fantastic movie. If you like The Conspiracy of Us or The Da Vinci Code or National Treasure, this is something I think you'd really enjoy. It has a whole different like conspiracy thing though with the Bathorys. It's something that's totally different. This was so good. So next on my list is a series of books. That is the Wild Seasons series by Christina Lauren. This is a new adult contemporary series. In the first book, we follow 3 best friends as they graduate from college and travel to Las Vegas to celebrate their graduation. They meet these 3 boys who are on vacation together. They have a wild, rowdy, crazy night in Vegas together, and they wake up the next morning with some very interesting consequences. And each book follows one of the couples as they deal with the consequences, the fallout, the aftermath of those one-night decisions. Even though each one follows a different couple, they are still chronological, so you still have to read them in this specific written order. I really liked Mia and Ansel in book 1, and Harper and Finn I think are my personal favorites from book 2, but they're all great in such different ways. They managed to make each relationship and each couple so distinctly different. I have one more book in this series to read, and I'm definitely gonna pick it up as soon as possible. If you like new adult and you want some new adult with some good substance as well, not just like romps, I recommend these. They're fantastic. My next favorite book is actually one of the very first books that I read this year, and that is Truthwitch by Susan Dennard. It's about 2 girls who are best friends. They are also amateur criminals, and they are hired to rob a carriage at the beginning of the book. However, they rob the wrong carriage that sets them on a path of turmoil and destruction and bad decisions. This actually takes place right before the end of a 20-year truce between various countries. I love the magic system in here. All of the witches play off a different type of element. I cannot wait for the 3rd book, Blood Witch, because the Blood Witch in the story Aedwan is so fascinating. Can't wait to learn more about his story because we don't know a whole lot about him. I enjoyed these so much. They were just so much fun, so action-packed, so humorous, so beautifully constructed. I loved the world and the magic system, and definitely a favorite of last year. Then I have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This one is one that I don't like to talk a lot about the actual premise of the book because I feel like it's best to go in blind because our main character goes into the story blind as well. She isn't aware of what she's getting herself into, and so I feel like if you don't know what you're getting yourself into as well, it just makes the realizations and the truths so much more impactful. I just found this to be such a heartbreaking story about 2 people who are really trying to be their best selves, and it's just not enough. I was just so emotionally torn up over this book. Things happened that were so shocking. They were out of left field for me. The main character, Lily, would definitely agree. I felt so betrayed by the characters because I wanted them to be better people, but they just couldn't. It broke my heart. I know that it has a lot of personal connection to Colleen Hoover's actual life and what she dealt with as a child growing up. This book broke me. It was so good, and it's so poignant, and it's so important to read, but it was still very upsetting. So good. In that same vein, we have The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. This was so inspiring, but like inspiring in a different sense of the word, because it really made me reevaluate, reestablish how I approach the ideas of sexual consent and rape and gender roles in our society. Because there are things that I just like inherently think upon seeing something and didn't realize how wrong those inherent ideas are until I read this book, and I'm like, wow, I do that. It's so wrong and I shouldn't be doing that. And I didn't even know that me doing that causes all these other issues that I'm trying to fight against, that I'm trying to speak out against, and I'm just perpetuating what I'm fighting against, and it makes no sense. Mindy McGinnis in this book does a really great job of just calling out the bullshit and just putting it in its place and saying, this is how it is, and it's time for you to stop ignoring it, and it's time for you to address it. I'd say this is so on the nose for our times right now and for what we are dealing with in actual society. It's something that I think everybody should read and everybody can learn something from. It's a very entertaining book, but it's also a very thought-provoking book. It isn't a type of story that I read very often. I don't read a lot of like social commentary, contemporary. I was blown away by how much I was impacted by this. It was just absolutely phenomenal. Next on my list here is an entire series that I read for the first time this year, and I'm a little ashamed to say that, but it is the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. I loved this trilogy so much. It's quickly become one of my all-time favorite trilogies, and I didn't even expect that going into it. I loved the Grisha and I loved their culture and their society. Are you guys surprised that my camera overheated? Because I'm not. Anyway, what was I saying? Something about Shadow and Bone, right? Right? All I know is that I love the Grisha. I love their powers. Remember, I love superpowers. I love people with powers. So of course I loved this. I actually really liked the romance between Alina and Mal. I know that is like an incredible unpopular opinion, but I loved them together so very much. I mean, I did enjoy the scenes with Alina and the Darkling, but personally, I really liked Alina and Mal. Weird, I know, and I can't wait to see what else we get from this world. I know we're getting another series about Nikolai, but I want to see more from certain other characters in this series that I can't say because spoiler, just to know that they're doing okay and that they're living happily and peacefully in the countryside. And I'm sure you've already read this, but if you haven't, you are missing out. It's fantastic. And then this would not be my channel without at least something from Sarah J. Maas. Oh boy. Neither of these books, Tower of Dawn being the 6th book in the Throne of Glass series, or Court of Wings and Ruin being the 3rd book in the Akatar series, are my favorites from either of the series. I definitely have to say this is my 2nd favorite from the series. Could not put these on my list because both of these books made me cry. And if a book makes me cry, evokes that much emotion from me, it has to be a favorite because it happens so infrequently. So when it does happen, it's done. We have been connected on a spiritual, deep spiritual level. I loved seeing what Kale was up to. I loved seeing more of this world. We got to visit the southern continent and got a whole new culture with new customs and new characters, and yet we still managed to learn so many new things about what we've been working towards for the entire series. This one was so much more character driven than a lot of her other novels, and I just loved the relationship between Kale and Irene, and then between Nezran and Sartak, how they developed into these amazing versions of themselves while they were traveling together. It was really a different experience from reading a lot of her other novels. And then of course, A Court of Wings and Ruin being the final full-length novel in the Feyre and Rhysand story arc. Loved this book because Nesta is amazing. I am so obsessed with Nesta. It is not even funny, and I cannot wait for the next like arc of this story. Nesta quickly became like my favorite character in the entire series in this book. She just came into her own in this novel. She was just such a badass, independent woman, and she's just so cold, and you don't see so many cold female protagonists who are still so likable, which is like, it's a weird combination because she's not very nice, but she's just so likable. There are things in this book that really got under my skin. I was really not okay with, and the ending was a bit of a cop-out in my opinion. Like I said, it could not be a favorites video of mine without mentioning some Sarah J. Maas. Those were the best books that I read in 2017. I would love to know what the best book was that you read in 2017. Tell me in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I will talk to you very soon. Bye!